Welcome, everyone, to our first. It's actually not our first episode because we have the intro episode on the YouTube channel, but this is
Right.
our first non-intro, although now it's another intro. So we'll call it our second episode, but I really feel like it's our first because we've been on Patreon for almost 2 years because we started, I think, in February of 2023. And so we've been doing this almost 2 years, and this has really been a lot of fun, but we know that we want more people to hear what we have to say. Basically, we feel like we can spread the word to a lot more people and get a lot more people, especially doctors, on board to help with this patient population and to have better understanding of what it is that we see and what it is that we do and how we do it. So we made the very bold decision to, and I should say we were we were gently nudged towards this
Right.
decision by many of our subscribers, which we appreciate, to go to YouTube, and so that these episodes would be free, and that David and I would work towards different methods of maybe monetizing our YouTube channel once we get a certain number of subscribers, of course, which seems to be one of the criteria for YouTube monetization. But regardless, these episodes going forward will now be free to whoever wants to watch.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the real goal here, our goal, which is what it was when we first started, was uh, education and getting as many people to see this as possible, and in particular, healthcare providers, healthcare clinicians. And I think we've had a great number of subscribers to Patreon, but we've had very, very few physicians or other type healthcare people. And I'm hoping that going to YouTube will change that. You know?
Yeah, I think it will. And I think that people can now share our episodes, which I think is important because
Right.
they've been sort of paywalled by Patreon, so they weren't able to be shared. So I think we'll get a lot more people viewing and watching and commenting, which can sometimes be scary, you know, depending upon what they want to comment on. But we can always, I suppose, we can always shut off comments or we
Right.
can block them.
Yeah. Well, hopefully people will be
Kind,
civil and respectful.
right?
I mean, there are lots of people out there, and unfortunately, lots of physicians and healthcare people who don't believe in any of the stuff we talk about. I doubt they will come forward in the comments, but it's always possible. You just
True.
have to see.
Absolutely.
Have to see.
So today we thought that, there was just the recent mastermind, and we always refer to our masterminds group. And our subscribers have heard us talk about that wonderful group of almost 600 doctors now, I think
A
Larry said.
little over now, yeah.
Wow. So, and it's just a very robust conversation that goes on an email. And I've learned a lot of pearls over the years from it. I think it's a really remarkable group of doctors that all see complex patients and all from all different specialties, which I think is actually the beauty of it, right?
Exactly.
All,
Right,
we all
right.
come with our
And
side,
not all physicians. I mean,
not
it's
all physicians. That's right.
physical therapy and nutrition and
Right.
just the whole gamut. It's incredible.
Yeah, and it's really nice to hear the different perspectives. And I've definitely picked up, different pearls over the years, and especially from you, David, even though we talk all the time. Sometimes you comment, and I'm like, oh, he never told me that. So, so I even learned from you that way.
That's
Learned in
funny.
many different ways.
Yeah.
But that masterminds group just recently had their annual conference, though it wasn't annual in the past couple of years because of the pandemic, but they finally got together. I
Right.
unfortunately was unable to make it, but Dr. Kaufman was there, and were there patients there?
No, no patients. I mean,
That's,
not that we knew of.
yeah,
I mean,
that's
some of the physicians are patients.
right,
Many,
right,
many of the clinicians are on masterminds are themselves ill with one of these diagnoses, or more
right.
commonly have family members, which is often, I think we've mentioned this in previous episodes, it's remarkable to me how many physicians who see the patients that we see, chronic complex patients, got into it because a member of their family or themselves was sick. And pre-COVID, that was true mostly EDS and mast cell. Post-COVID, so many members have long COVID or family members with long COVID.
Yeah, I think that's what will spark a lot of people's interest is
I
that when a
agree.
family member or someone that they love is affected, then they
Right.
learn more so that they can help more. And I know that we get a lot of patients from or like referrals because from doctors whose family member was affected, and so they will reach out to us and will you help my family member kind of
Right.
thing. So yeah, I completely agree. I will say well, and I do want to hear about the conference, and that is the point of this particular episode. But I will say that, I'm currently in Denver, which by the way is why we're not in the studio together, because I'm in Denver and David is in Seattle. But I'm at this incredible CSF League conference, which is open to patients. And in fact, they have several talks by patients. And I really like it. And I think it actually provides sort of
That's
that,
really surprising. I
yeah,
would not have predicted they would be open to patients there.
yeah, they're open to patients and
That's
they
great.
like speaking. So
Yeah,
they speak of it from the patient perspective, which is I have found to be really moving to listen to. I mean, there was even one which, and I really enjoyed this one particular patient who talked about her experience getting a CT myelogram. And I used to say that doctors should go through everything that we make patients do so that we have an understanding of what they have to go
right.
through. And so it was really interesting. She went in detail with regards to like beginning to end of a CT myelogram from her perspective and her experience, not even knowing what a CT myelogram was. And I just found it so useful. And there were a lot of talks like that from the patient perspective of how they suffered and how they found a doctor who can help them and how they were helped. But anyway, I think that that's such a great way to run a conference, was my initial point. And so I'm hoping that maybe in the future, although there are so many doctors in this masterminds group, that there can be some kind of conference like that with patients who can also speak
Sure.
their experience. But
Yeah.
I guess that would be up to the organizers.
Right. Right. But we can, it's a very fluid group, so I think it's very possible to do that. Actually, before I launch into the conference, I just want to say one other thing about YouTube. We don't usually do our episodes this way on a Zoom call, so in two different locations. And part of the reason we're doing it is we are in two different locations, but it's also you and I have had so much trouble getting our schedules,
Right.
openings in our schedules to do it together. So going forward, we may do this more often. So I think it would be useful to get some comments from
Yeah.
viewers,
I
how they feel about it. Is it worse than doing it together? What is the impact? What do you think? Just please let us know.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. We definitely would love feedback on how you like this kind of setup. Because, and while we fully want to be in the studio together, we actually, before we started recording, we're talking about how much more fun that is. Our schedules sometimes make that impossible and we want to do regular episodes. So sometimes we have to resort to just doing a recorded Zoom. So please let us know your feedback on how you like this. And if there's, listen, we're dinosaurs. Like I don't know much about Zoom or YouTube. So if there's any other way that we can do it to make it a little bit more palatable, we have our ears are open. So, or I guess our eyes are open to read your comments. But yeah,
Right.
so absolutely. That's a good point, David. So the conference. So what I asked
So go
basically
ahead.
was like just pearls that, he may have come away with or something that sort of stuck out in his mind
Right.
that he would want to share with us.
Sure. So just a few words about the conference itself. So this was, I think, almost 2 years from the previous conference, which had been many years break because of COVID. The last one was in New York. And when we moved it to Portland, and the group, this is all volunteer. I mean, I think it's important to understand we don't hire a company to do this. It's all physicians and healthcare people who volunteer to arrange this. And it's an enormous amount of work, just huge. And they did an amazing job. I am biased because I was on the speaker committee, meaning I participated with two other docs inviting people to give talks. So I think we did a good job. And my goal very strongly, and everybody, the other two agreed, was not to have a conference dedicated to mast cell activation syndrome, even though that's theoretically what Mastermind was initially about, but that it was focused on complex illness, that this was, we didn't call it this, but it was kind of a CEPTED conference as opposed to an MCAS conference. And we made a lot of effort to pursue that in the kinds of talks and the speakers that were invited. So Eileen said earlier to me, let's do the conference and do pearls. And I went over some of the conference slides and everything before this recording today. And I realized that is incredibly difficult to do. All right. The range of talks was huge. And, for me, some of the pearls were not necessarily from a specific speaker, but pulling back and looking at a day's agenda and how intentionally or unintentionally, virtually every speaker gave a talk that showed how all of these diagnoses that Eileen, you and I talk about all the time are so intimately and intricately interconnected.
Mhm.
It was really remarkable looking at it that way. So, for example, Alexis Kutchins, who's a cardiologist in Atlanta at Emory, gave a talk on POTS, EDS, and mast cell. Okay, not just POTS, but all three. All right. Um, uh, um, Dr. McDermott from the Spencer Group from minimally invasive. What does it stand for? MIPS,
Minimally invasive procedural specialists?
maybe. I never remember. Anyhow, it's Brooke Spencer's group, and Dr. McDermott's part of the group. She came, gave a talk um, on venous compression syndromes, some amazing images on the screen to look at and see how they make the diagnosis and what happens when they stent, and relating it to EDS and mast cell, et cetera. There was another talk from a Dr. Yi, who is I guess, a gynecologist, and her talk was on genital pelvic pain syndromes dash vestibulodynia and mast cell activation syndrome.
Oh,
Now,
wow.
I never would have expected that talk, right? And it was great. I mean, and she had slides and cells and
How did you
stains,
not
and
have expected that talk when you were on the speaker committee?
because I didn't know her. Somebody else invited her,
Oh, I see. Okay.
right? And we didn't necessarily, we saw the title, but I didn't
Right.
expect how well presented it would be and how, interconnected it
Oh my
was.
God, I have to see that talk.
Yeah. Some of the other ones, Jill Schofield gave a talk on antiphospholipid syndrome. She's done that talk before, but she again linked it to POTS and discussed the data showing how many patients with POTS have APS and how many and then how they also have mast cell. Again, so interesting to see these connections. Um, just looking at some notes. So there was this great talk by another surgeon. We had a bunch of surgeons there, which was also very interesting because, most of the time you'd think these septate illnesses, the surgeons are not going to be too tuned into it. So there was Dr. Nagy from Australia who flew in for this. She is a breast surgeon, and her specialty is breast implant um,
Illness.
pathology that causes mast cell activation. And she discussed the findings, the surgery. Again, amazing presentation in terms of imaging, and you just come away from that saying, "Wow, this is really true. These breast implants cause a lot of trouble, and they have to be removed in a very careful and proper manner."
Is
Two
her
others,
advice though that breast surgeons, I mean, so that what should they advise patients when they're looking for implants? Is that the
I think she'd probably advise them not to get them.
I'm just wondering about all the plastic surgeons who have these consults for women who are looking for implants. Do
Yeah.
they aware of this? Do they, I don't know, do they counsel the patients appropriately and let them make an
I suspect it's minimal counseling, you know. Um,
yeah.
and obviously millions of people have them and they may not have reactions, although you never know. It's most physicians are not going to make a connection between somebody coming in with um, autoimmune arthritis type picture and the fact that they have breast implants. It just doesn't
Right.
connect, just like MCAS doesn't connect in most physician offices. Some of the other surgeons, Dr. Hepworth was there, gave a talk on Eagle syndrome and cranial cervical instability and pathology at the cranial cervical junction. Again, for me as a non-surgeon, watching him and Dr. Shuid show us the anatomy was really great for me. It was like being transported back to medical school and looking at this and saying, "Oh yeah, I sort of remember that." It was great. It was really great slides. Great slides. Who else? Dr. Bolognese was there, not in person, unfortunately. It was a pre-recorded, and there were some tech problems with it, but it was very, very well done. And again, more anatomy, more connecting, or actually focusing on cranial cervical instability in patients with connective tissue disorder. So again, all of these things were linked together, and that was wonderful. Andy Maxwell was a cardiologist in East Bay near San Francisco, gave his very famous or infamous spiky leaky talk, which was awesome and overwhelming.
I'm sure the paper is overwhelming, but
It
really,
is was amazing, and
yeah.
all 140 slides, and it was like he had 50 minutes to talk. That was another thing in planning this conference. We very consciously wanted to give people a lot of time to talk. So rather than the usual 10 or 15 minutes and brief Q&As, most people had 20 to 50 or 60 minutes, and then we had a long Q&A at the end of each module. Conference was divided up into modules related to different subject pieces. So his talk was pretty amazing. I still don't fully understand it, but it was pretty amazing.
Did you read the paper?
But
You read
did
the
I
paper?
read it? Not yet. No,
Oh,
it's very
good.
long.
It's very long, but really good, really
Yeah,
good. A lot of information, very
it's
dense.
amazing you got it published because they don't
I
usually
know.
publish papers that long. Um, Tanya Dempsey gave a talk on vector-borne illness or vector-borne disease, which was good with discussing treatments and other ways to look at treatment. And then Bella Chetta gave a talk on EBV and its relationship to septet patients and connective tissue disorder. Great talk from Luke Liu, who's I guess he's trained as an anesthesiologist. So he is doing stellate ganglion block. He's up in Alaska and really put it on the map in my mind for ME/CFS and long COVID patients. And again, cited his data, talked about how to do it, and brought some history in, and again, beautiful anatomy slides of where the needle's going. So great stuff. Who else? I mean, I'm
I
just
like,
giving you
I think
highlights.
that you're actually, I mean, you just sort of touched on a bunch of different topics that I think would make great episodes in and of themselves, specifically about the anatomy that we sort of refer to, we don't go into, and we certainly
Right.
don't show. And I think with YouTube, we actually have now new tools that we can even do like animation or videos. And so I think we'll be able to even show some of the anatomy that we refer to, like when we refer to the compression syndromes, for example, we can show that anatomy.
Yep.
At the CSF League conference that I'm here, I mean, the slideshows are incredible when it comes to anatomy and how they've even shown slides where the same patient had the same kind of imaging, and the leak was not identified, was not apparent on imaging number one, and then 2 weeks later the imaging was repeated and it was fine and they could finally see it, but it was the same imaging, and it was really just sort of interesting to sort of see the difference, and there was no change in technique, which is just sort of a unique thing about leaks in general. They can be intermittent, but that's another, we can do CSF leak as a topic too.
Yes,
So,
yes, for sure.
but I'm
And
just speaking to what you were referring to. I agree that watching some of these slide presentations, with all, because most of these are neuroradiologists and neurointerventionalists, so they're all just anatomy, was really exciting for me to sort of see
so
what.
you get, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, you're giving me a great idea, which is we can invite some of these speakers
Yes,
to join us and even use the same talk and
yes,
play their talk, so to speak, with them giving it, with their slides, because they really, when I went back today to look at the stuff before this talk today, before our YouTube, I realized how much you forget and how fast, and that these really deserve multiple looks.
they do.
And then I know that a few other mastermind people that I know have said the same thing, that they went back and looked at slides again and realized how much is still there, that
Yeah.
you don't get it the first time necessarily.
Well, I always say, so, in my talk, I sort of, as I said today, I just sort of talked about a case, and the initial referral to me was literally refractory migraines. That was what was written on the referral sheet. And I sort of started off by saying that whenever, and the patient had had migraines supposedly for 5 years. And I started off by saying that when I see something like that, I immediately think of the anatomy, because they had seen, all the headache specialists that there are, and I'm not even a headache specialist. I mean, there are fellowships for headache medicine.
Right.
So there are true headache specialists out there, and some really good ones. And I work with some really good ones. And so these patients have seen the gamut of the headache specialist, have tried the gamut of all of the different migraine medications we have these days, both preventative and abortive, but also, all of the different other modalities, including lifestyle options. And they've done everything that they should to that we would expect at least some improvement in migraines. But you get this patient in a room and you listen to them and you think, well, one, there's a lot of other headaches going on here, and they're not all migraines, first of all, because they don't all meet the criteria. There can be different semiologies of headaches, and every headache is not a migraine. There are so many different types of headaches. And then I can't help but think then the fact that you've responded to nothing that has been tried, like we have to look at your anatomy. And that's why anatomy is so important. And just in the work that we do with connective tissue patients and EDS patients, I mean, it's the anatomy. It's the anatomy. What's that word? What's that? It's
Stupid.
the
It's
anatomy.
the anatomy, stupid.
It's your anatomy, stupid. Right. I'm gonna say to a patient. It is the anatomy though, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and then that's the challenge though. So what part of the anatomy? And then to have a really, and I always say like, and I realize that I'm better at neuroanatomy than you. I get that. But, to be honest, like I'm not as good as like a neuroradiologist is or a neurosurgeon is, frankly. I mean, sometimes when I talk to Paulo, I have to have him like go back and repeat something just so I can visualize it in my head so I know what anatomy he's referring to. So like there's just grades of like expertise in anatomy in general. And so it's always been sort of this, goal of mine of like really, really understanding the intricacies of the anatomy. I mean, even just like the venous supply of the cord, we for a long time, we never understood it. We're understanding it more now than we ever did before because it's so complex. But I do think that a lot of our episodes should focus more in on anatomy. And if we can bring in people who are experts in a particular part of the anatomy, like of the compression center of the abdomen and the pelvis, like some of those docs that you spoke about, that would be really great. And I think we
I
would
agree.
all of our viewers would learn a whole lot more about why anatomy can be so important. And when you have a connective tissue problem, that anatomy is rarely ever right.
Right, right. No, it is incredible to realize the knowledge that a surgeon or an interventional radiologist has of anatomy. Um, and then when you watch a surgical procedure or you watch their slides, it's like there's no way I can do that. I just don't know it well enough, and they're in there digging around and
Gosh, yeah.
dissecting and
Yeah.
blunt dissection and sharp dissection. And it's unbelievable.
No,
And it
it
gives
really
you enormous respect for them, I have to say.
I mean, I don't, when I've been in the surgeries with Paulo, with Dr. Bolognese, like, to be honest with you, I would hold back tears in my eyes. And
Yeah,
I actually once wrote something to someone where I said, like, wow, what an honor to be able to operate on such intricate anatomy that I, as a neurologist, only have the ability to sort of like, sort of visualize and to talk about, but he gets to touch and manipulate and operate on and really fix a problem. Like,
right.
that to me that's an honor. And I agree with you. It's almost
And
it's
knows where to look. He knows, he
no,
knows
right,
what,
exactly.
Hepworth, they all
Exactly.
know, what to
Exactly.
look for.
I and if I you know, I've often every time I go to New York, I'm like, maybe I'll just spend the day with him in the OR, but then I'm like, oh, I'll get hungry, I'll have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, I know.
I don't want to stand. It'll remind me of like my residency and med school days. I'll be like,
Right,
do
right.
that.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, so I agree with you. So I think we should focus more on anatomy on some episodes going forward, but also bringing in together all the different comorbid diagnoses and how even the anatomy applies to those and how those apply to the anatomy. I think that's just really important.
yeah. I mean, and again, that was one of the real takeaways from this meeting, and I feel really good about it because that's what we wanted, how, the speakers addressed everything. They basically took the septet and turned it around, turned it on its head, and did all this stuff with it, and just showed these interactions and interconnectedness from their perspective related to their specialty or major interests, which just made it all the more powerful.
Was there anyone speaking about the effect of hormones on
Tanya gave a talk on hormones, and I think there was somebody else. I can't remember off the top of my head, but there was, I think, two talks on that. Um, Greg Platnikoff gave a great talk on nutritional and nutrition and supplements in our patients. I love reading his posts on Masterminds, and his talk was great. He gave a talk on the first night on the things that we do when we interact with patients that often can be psychologically harmful to them and can be also psychologically beneficial to them. and the intricacies of language and the implications of how we use our words. It's very kind of, I
Wow.
don't know what the word is, philosophical, but it was
Yeah. Is
really good, really, really good.
there an
He's a,
example?
he's a very interesting guy.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, his
Yeah,
posts are interesting, but is there
yeah.
an example of like a word that
Well, I mean, the
got
classic
you?
ones that I remember even, I mean, that I've thought about, so they're easy for me to remember. You and I were taught in medical school as in our training, patient denies. Well, that's a very negative thing to say, right?
Right,
The patient's lying, they're denying,
right,
okay?
right. Or complains
Or
of, right.
right, or complains of, or non-compliant,
Non,
right? Like you're a
that's a good
bad
one.
patient, non-compliant. So, and there's always more examples like that as uh, I can't remember the others, but it was very good. Teresa Dow gave a talk on new innovations in care. Teresa's a nurse practitioner in Flagstaff, and she's very cool because she's very quick and comfortable jumping to some new ideas as long as the risks are not great. So she talked about the use of red lights, flow restriction, um, red lights, flow restriction. What were the others? I think she also talked about PEMF.
Oh,
So it was really, it was good stuff. Very
yeah.
good.
I have a PEMF mat.
I have a PEMF device, which really works.
I broke my ribs. Someone told me I should buy one, so I did.
Yeah.
It
It
worked.
helped you, right? Yeah,
It
yeah,
totally did. Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, the small PEMF coils help with focal things like tendonitis and stuff like that. Very, very helpful.
Huh. That, so you said that the talks are going to be online and for sale soon.
Yeah, it should be very soon. I just was talking to Alina, one of the people, that I work with, and they're just finishing up the editing, and what they don't know yet, there'll be two kinds of availabilities. There'll be the video of fully available with CME for
Oh,
physicians,
okay.
and then there'll be for non-physicians a non-CME, which will be much less expensive, but I don't know the cost,
Got it.
but it will be available.
I look,
And I would urge people to consider getting it if it's not too expensive.
do you know what the price will be yet? Did she?
No, I asked her, but unless she told me now, but I don't think so. Take one more look. No, still don't have it.
Okay.
Um, but I think it's worth looking at. It'll be, potentially somewhat slow going for patients, but you'll be able to have it and look at it again and again, and I think that will help. And
I think that's key. I mean,
yeah.
I think when you just sort of listen to a talk and you don't have an innate understanding of some of the basic mechanisms, I think it's easy to just go out of your head. But when you can look at a talk over and over again or read something over and over again, I think it's much more helpful.
The other thing about the meeting, which is not a pearl, so to speak, is just the opportunity to talk to the other physicians and people that were there. It
Yeah,
was the so-called networking, which
that
is
work.
kind of a lousy term, was great. I mean, to be able to sit down with Luke Liu and Hepworth and Andy Maxwell all at one table and just sit there and talk for an hour and a half. It was
Oh my,
great.
I can't believe I missed that. I would have
Yeah.
liked to have been part of
Yeah,
that
you
group.
would have loved it. You would have
Yeah,
loved it.
I'll go next time. Where is it going to be?
It's going to be in Minneapolis, I think, Midwest. Well, closer than New York.
That is true. I will definitely be there and I'll give a talk this time.
Good. And I'll watch.
Yeah, so I think I like conferences in general. That's why I'm here at the CSF League conference. And I do like giving talks. I like sharing information. I like questions. I like feedback. And sometimes I feel like I give talks just to be part of the Q&A afterwards because I prefer to be asked questions and then I can just sort of,
I
wax
agree.
about
Much,
topics.
much easier than giving a talk.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I was just saying to my husband that I'm such a horrible public speaker, and I'm reminded of that every time I stand up to give a talk. And I always think like, how
I
many bad talks
doubt
do I
that,
have to give
Eileen.
before
I
people?
doubt that's true.
I am horrible, David.
Okay.
When I'm up at a podium in front of like a room full of people, I'm really good one-on-one and I'm good in small groups. But when I'm up at a podium and I have to give a slideshow, like I talk too fast. My New York accent is just unbearable. And I don't say half the things that I want to say. And then I'm like beating myself up later in the day, like, oh, I forgot to mention that. I
Yeah.
forgot to mention this. I
No, I
forgot.
have the same problem. I
Yeah.
gave two talks tonight. I was so nervous the first talk, and I hear my voice wavering and all this
Yeah,
stuff.
and I'm
Everybody says, "No, you sounded fine," but I didn't feel fine.
beta
So
blockers.
yeah, next
But,
time.
but I was just saying to Stephen, like, how many bad talks do I have to give before people stop inviting me? I'm giving another one tomorrow, but I do like the Q&A afterwards. I really do. I enjoy the questions because then I really feel like at least I'm answering what someone really wants to know about, right? Sometimes with
Right,
my slides, I actually have those thoughts in my head. Like, does anyone really care about like these 3 lines that I put on this slide? Like, does it matter?
right.
But if you ask me a question, then I know that you want to know the answer, and then I'm really excited to
No, I
help.
agree. And that was specifically why we had long Q&As at the meeting, that we tried to really have enough so people really had an opportunity to ask questions because there's never enough time for everybody to get in their question.
Right, of course. And we even learned that with our lives, which is why we enjoy doing our lives, because then we get to answer real questions from our subscribers. And
Right,
so much fun for us to do, but we never get to all of the questions. And so,
right.
yeah, I completely agree. So, yeah, so I'm not a big fan of giving talks, but I like the Q&A after. I like to be part of panels.
Yeah, panels are good. I agree. Because then you have the interaction between the panelists and the
Right,
audience. So
right,
that's great.
exactly.
We didn't do any panels this time.
Oh, you should
But,
have.
well, we did the Q&A as a panel. So, like I said, the meeting was divided into these modules. So the infection module, I was up there, Tanya was up there, Bella Chetta was up there. I think there might have been a fourth person, I can't remember. And then, the questions are directed to one of us, but we all chime in at different times. So in that sense, it was very good.
Oh,
More
wow,
kind
that
of
sounds
dialogue.
great.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to actually purchasing the talks and listening to some because I really do learn a lot from all those doctors on Mastermind. So I wish I were there, but I wasn't. But but you're my partner, so so I learned from you.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
okay. Well, I think that what sounds like a great meeting, and I think that this was our good introduction to our new YouTube show called the David and Eileen Show. Still Unraveled, Understanding Complex Illness. And so we look forward. We have a ton of topics that we are going to cover over the next bunch of months. 2025 should be a really banner year for our podcast series. And so we are both really excited and happy that you've sort of transitioned over here to YouTube with us. And please share with your friends. And we want to get lots of subscribers. And we're going to use a lot of the fun tools that YouTube has to offer so that we could better serve you. And then just as always, comment with ideas that you have for topics you want us to cover, or even questions that you have that we can answer. And we look forward to doing it all.
Yeah, and I would add that there's some tech savvy people that have been watching. So if you have suggestions on how to optimize, what's the term? Yes, something optimize. What is it? It's a 3-letter
3 letters.
SEO, SEO.
Oh, SEO, yeah, how to find search engine optimization.
Thank you. Things like that so that more people can find this and see it. I mean, the whole goal here is to try to spread the word.
Yes.
And I think one of the lessons from masterminds to me, not the meeting so much as the listserv, only maybe 4 or 5 years ago, there were 20 people that started that, from a meeting we had in
Wow.
California for Mass Cell. And now it's 650 people. So, the word spreads and people get interested. And sometimes they're interested, but they don't know about resources like this, like us potentially, or masterminds. And it makes a huge difference if people connect. And it really
I agree.
ultimately helps the patients.
I agree. 100%. I really enjoy being in the same room with like-minded people, and learning from them, and then sort of having conversation and dialogue. And I enjoy being with patients in the same room. I really miss a lot of that with the new telemedicine
Right,
thing. But right now, I think that's the best way that we can help more people is through telemedicine.
right,
So,
right. So nothing perfect, but that's at least
right.
gives us more chance to help more people.
Yeah, and one last thing about the Masterminds listserv is that what I like, and what we sort of already said this, is that there are people from all different specialties and perspectives, and that is the key to it. Like I don't, I like my neurology groups a lot because we share, our perspective, and sometimes, we sort of we confirm when one of us is suspecting something of a patient. But what I love about the different perspectives of the different specialties that are present on the listserv is that I learn pearls on how to help a patient's other symptoms of their other organs. And, and because as we always say, that everything is so interconnected with the septad diagnoses, that I just learn what other specialties do for a particular symptom. And so when what I've tried is no longer working, I think, oh, I remember reading that this doctor tried this, let me give this a try. And sometimes it's actually really effective. So
Right.
I love that aspect of it. And I find it so much more collegial than sort of just sitting alone in my silo and just thinking my own siloed thoughts.
Yeah, no, I agree. I
Really
agree.
sad.
Plus, because there's so many different kinds of clinicians on it, you get all these different perspectives on the topic. So
Right.
a big topic lately is the GLP-1 drugs and how amazingly effective they are in our
Yeah.
patients. Well, hearing about that efficacy and what people have learned coming from an internist or a surgeon or a physical therapist or a nutritionist, it's huge. It makes it's so much more global, and it's so it is so not what we're used to as
Right.
physicians. All right. Usually
That's a perfect way of
it's
saying.
this
Yeah.
again silo stuff.
Mhm.
And Masterminds has broken down the silos.
There's no silos on masterminds for
Right.
sure. For sure. All right, silo, like Vogue.
Right.
All right, well, I'm
Okay.
gonna go
All
because
right. Thank
I
you very
got a
much.
Denver dinner to attend.
Okay. Go enjoy your dinner.
But
No leaks at dinner, I hope. Okay.
gosh, no leaks at dinner. All right, well, this was fun. And again, tell us what you want, tell us what you need, tell us what you think. And here we go.
Okay. Thank you.
Vote next week.
Oh, yes, please vote the right way.
There was a big parade going on down here, and everyone was screaming and about candidates, and yeah,
Yeah.
very political.
Scary time. Very scary.
All right, guys. See you later.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Bye.